It's the Growler with BD and J. Here to analyze for you today. From Growler bed to Jay's got stats. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Growler podcast.
All right, welcome to the latest edition of PD and J here on the Growler. Paul Dehner Jr. here with you, along with the refreshed, tanned, minted, golden Jay Morrison. Jay, I honestly thought you would have a more impressive tan when the lights flipped on here today. I'm not going to lie. After your week on the beach,
I've matured a little bit. I used to be a never sunscreen guy. It's like, oh, who cares if I get burned? It just turns to tan eventually, anyhow. But I've gotten smarter with the sunscreen. I've gotten more uncomfortable with the heat, and I spend a lot of time under the tent and in the shade. So, yeah, I got a little bit of sun this year, but it's nothing like in years past.
Yeah, you're really maturing, Jay. I think people would be surprised to hear this. I do, like, when we see people at training camp, when we're out, we always say, if you see us, say hi. We love talking to people that listen or watch the show or whatever. I feel like during training camp, they're always a little taken aback by how tan you are and how tan you get, especially during camp. That time of year, we're out in the sun a lot. Like, you're a very naturally tan guy. I look like this, where people are like just blinded by the whiteness and the baldness and the light. But, you know, next to each other, it's notable, very notable.
I've actually been putting sunscreen on for training camp last couple of years too, as well. So you get a little smarter with age, or you get a little more scared with age, I guess.
Yeah, real growth. A lot of people betting against that when you were younger, doing all the things Mullet J did, which we appreciate, and we love the stories, of course. I'm missing a good mullet. I need a good Mullet J story in ARBIES sometime soon. We need to drop another one back in, maybe a good one that we think of that hasn't been shared yet, that needs to see the light of day. So
there's a few.
There are a few. All right, we got a bunch of stuff we're going to get to today. We're going to touch briefly on some news, which is kind of we had last week. We had the appetizer to Who Dey Dark a couple weeks ago when we did the whole thing with Shemar and everything was going on there. And then we had actual Who Dey Dark, which was a fun episode. We had fun with it. It didn't feel as dark as the topics were. Mark and I had a good time with Who Dey Dark. I enjoyed it. This is going to be kind of like this little news segment, a little dessert, a little Who Dey Dark dessert, because we got to like touch on the stadium one more time, as that has kind of come to a head this week. We're going to touch on that, but Mo is going to join us, and we are going to do our best bets show. We typically do this time of year, look at some of the futures that are out there on BetMGM and some of our favorite ones, some obscure ones, things that we just like. Whether for value or likelihood of winning or any reason whatsoever. There, if you go on there, I mean, there's so many futures and different things you can dive into and different topics in the Bengals season that we can touch on just through that lens. So Mo's going to come on, and no one's better to do it to take that angle than when we bring Mo on. So he'll be in here in a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit about all of that. Jay will have some stats. We'll have some ARBIES. Maybe I can coax a Mullet J story out of you here, if we can make one come to mind at some point. And we'll get to all of that, as all our normal stuff that we normally do. Let's touch on the news here. I'm gonna gloss over what maybe I wish was the news this week, and that being that Joe Burrow can't quite throw a baseball, it appears. Was he trying to throw a curve? Like, I'm not sure. It looked like he was trying to throw like a new slurve, and he was working on a pitch, and trying to throw it. Just it didn't quite get there.
I have thoughts on this because it was a little surprising, and I've talked about it in the past. One of the fun things about the Logan Wilson softball tournament softball game, where you see these guys that are incredible athletes doing something out of their comfort zone, and they look like regular guys trying to swing a bat. You saw Shemar strike out. Throw a ball, whatever it is. I think with Joe, so many times in football, all quarterbacks, I'd like to see other quarterbacks try to do it as well, but you're used to leading the receiver. You're used to throwing a little bit to the left. If the receiver's crossing your face, you got to lead him a little bit. And it just seemed like he was expecting that target to take a couple steps and hit it that way. And that's why he was so far left on all.
He was leading the catcher is what you're saying, Jay.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just, his form wasn't bad. He didn't look awkward throwing the ball, but yeah, the target was way off, and that was surprising for a guy with incredible accuracy with the football. Even the one he did hit it, he barely hit the target.
Yeah, no excuses. I mean, I feel like hasn't Joe thrown out an opening pitch somewhere? Like, and I don't remember it being memorably bad. He didn't Mayor Mallory it. Like, I felt like it was all had to have been normal at some point. But maybe maybe a redemption song needs to be played for him sometime this summer before training camp or the season starts, where he goes over to the Reds and shows that he can throw one over the plate. Maybe just a little more practice.
I mean,
I wish that was. Go ahead.
I was saying those first pitches, you just kind of lob them in there. They're more.
Yeah.
You're more focused on and he was kind of letting those rip. The one on the video, like he wasn't just tossing it in there with a little arch on it. He was trying to fire him in there. So maybe that's what was causing the little bit of a curve there.
Joe needs a redemption, is what I'm saying at GABP. I wish that was the news. Shemar Chase tried to get gotcha'd by a TikToker on a plane, and that was what a pretty embarrassing moment for the TikToker. Which I feel like there's a lot of embarrassing moments for TikTokers, but that's cool. I don't even really have a comment on the hilarity of how stupid that is, that someone would do that or care about that or try to like call Shemar Chase out while he's sitting on a plane. So I'm happy that's not really news. I saw it was in the news, but I'm not counting that. Trey Hendrickson is working out at Black Sheep. Okay. So he's in town. What's Black Sheep, of course, it's usually this time of year is when that's where a lot of the players that are in town but not the facility hang out, prevalent over when there's been lockouts and things like that. And I know Sam Hubbard very closely connected to Patrick Coyne up there, but Trey Hendrickson up there, he's in town. I wish that was news. That's not news. The news this week is about the stadium. We have reached, we try to leave this alone, Jay. Like people don't want to get deep into the weeds. There is decades of scar tissue with this stuff here. It is political. It is it touches a lot of sensitive buttons. And so we talk about it. We reference it when it needs to be. And when you ask questions, it shows up a lot in Who Dey Light or Who Dey Dark in this case this past week. We try not to get to, but it has come to a head here this week. That June 30 is the deadline. And this is a significant deadline. One that if the county and the Bengals can't figure this out, and they're not there. They're meeting, the commissioners having meetings going on. The Bengals are negotiating, but this week is when it's all going to go down. If they can't figure it out now, the Bengals will be forced to hit a 2-year rolling window extension, essentially. One of the first, there's 5 of those. And in that 2 years, it opens the floodgates for them to look at other options. And I think that's sort of how that's viewed, in that right now is the time they need to get this done. People, they want to get it done. The Bengals want to get it done. The county wants to get it done. But there's a lot of blockades there. It's making it something that the taxpayers feel is more feasible. It's not making the same mistakes that so many felt like happened 30 years ago. The value that the Bengals bring to the city always brings up debate. There's so many different smaller topics, and you could spend years debating them, honestly. Mm-hmm. The bottom line is all those small questions lead up to the one big one. Can they find a way to get it done? Because if they don't, it brings a lot of uncomfortable topics into play if they don't get it done, and that 2-year rolling extension has to be exercised.
Yeah, I just think it's like anything else where you get closer to the deadline, they realize the importance. I think something's going to get done. Can't guarantee it, but it's one of those things. I think people, you look at the original stadium lease and people were so mad about it. Even football fans were mad about it because the Bengals were terrible back in the 90s. I think the stance on the team has softened a little bit because of the success lately. And there's always going to be the people that don't really care about sports that are going to be really against anything that favors the Bengals. But I think most people are just willing to wash their hands of it. We've all done it. We've all bought cars, and what a miserable experience that is, just negotiating that little contract. This goes way beyond that. People just don't want to dive into the numbers. I don't want to dive into the numbers. It's complicated stuff, and I think everybody's content just to sit back and I think there is a confidence level out there that something's going to get done, and this will be behind us.
That's the hope. The Bengals are great for the city. They have a massive economic impact. I think you see what they have done in terms of uniting people, what the global marketing figure is when you look at even just the establishing shots from some of the most watched events on TV all year long that end up, showing the city and people, the global connection of people. And that we talk to people and get emails from people from Australia, obviously all our great fans, UK, Germany. We're huge in the Netherlands. Like, Jay, we see that even just in the numbers of people that listen to our show and that know about Cincinnati through this. Like that's a sliver of it. But quantifying that to the taxpayers, the people representing the taxpayer, is very difficult. But that's why they're elected, and that hopefully they can figure whatever it is out. Because I know I don't want to have to keep doing this.
No,
I don't want to have to keep going down this and following this storyline and speculating and talking more. As much as I've loved talking about negotiations with the Bengals this offseason, I'd rather that we could get maybe a fairly long hiatus on having to worry about that stuff and get back to talking about football from my angle. But I understand the importance of it being something that is more bearable for the taxpayer. There we go. We did it. The news, about it. Thursday at 10 a.m., big meeting, okay, with the commission. That's when that's going to go down. And then they have until June 30, but that's the last meeting before it all goes down. So keep an eye on this week. Just be aware, big moment, critical moment for that topic this week, and we'll leave that go where it is. All right. Before we bring in Mo, I want to remind all you guys, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code Growler, and you will get a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager. The first thing you do is download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code Growler. That's all caps, Growler. The next thing you do is deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and then you will receive that same bet amount of up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your loses. So just make sure you use the bonus code Growler when you sign up. Okay, so don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code Growler and get your first $1,500 first bet offer today. All right, on that note, I think it's a great time for us to bring in our friend and yours, Mo Egger, because we're focusing today on betting, and nobody does it better than you, I don't think.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's a total misnomer, but thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. I'm ready.
Yeah.
Do you want my thoughts
we don't
on
have to check your accounts or anything, but
No, you don't have to do that. Are you sure you didn't bring me in to talk about the stadium situation? Because boy, that's my favorite topic.
How many experts have you had on to
it's a great
break
one.
down the finances?
None. Zero. That's in all honesty, I understand its importance, and I caught the last few minutes of what you guys were talking about there. But our show is a politics-free zone, and to me, that is a politics issue. So we let the station down the hall handle all that.
Yeah. There was an email that we got a while back from a listener, and they pointed out something that you wrote in November of 2019. And I know I love it when people do this to me. 6 years ago, you wrote this. But he pointed out it was about, I bought the Bengals and this is what I plan to do with the franchise.
Good God. I remember writing
this?
that in a hotel. Yeah, I don't want to. What do we have to do this?
No, I'm not going to go all the way there. I would say a lot of the things that you wanted to do have been done, have happened. This was a shout out to Matthew Collardo, who sent this email, but said, I'm going to run down some of them. We can sort of see how many have been checked off. These were many things that you wanted to see happen. No family members named to important positions. Well, that one I thought as well. Simplified jerseys. I think the jersey simplification has happened. Check. Keep PBS and naming rights, but upgrade the concourse and concessions, TVs, and bathrooms. They have upgraded. Done
immensely.
that.
Immensely. Yeah.
Add Bengals history exhibit to the stadium. Haven't quite gotten to the exhibit level, but they're moving in the right direction.
No doubt.
Ohio to legalize sports betting. There you go. Have wagering machines added to PBS. Not quite, but you don't need them.
Don't need them. Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Be able to tell which team plays here from outside the stadium. A little.
Getting there.
It's getting there.
I mean, when you're driving across the Brent Spence Bridge, you still look at that stadium and you don't go Bengals. I mean, it's better.
It's fair.
The entire stadium experience is better than it was back when I wrote that.
Statue of Anthony Munoz. Nope. Remove escalator. Nope. Creative Ring of Honor. Yes.
Yes.
There you go. More concerts and events at the stadium. Kind of. There have been. Taylor Swift had a big one there. Louis Riddick as GM. That didn't happen. Unrelenting in the pursuit of winning as team ethos.
Nah.
No.
Probably not.
Same.
Bigger scouting department. Recent check.
Okay.
Quote, unafraid of moving on from popular players whose usefulness has expired, end quote. That's happened.
That's happened. Maybe to a fault.
Yeah, right. No more mock turtle soup, which is the one thing in this I objected to.
Okay.
And so that still exists, although it's been under fire lately.
Yeah.
There was thoughts of changing the media program, and it could have meant the elimination of mock turtle. And I feel like if there's one thing on this beat that's happened is I stood up for mock turtle soup and said it cannot go. It must stay.
That's your legacy. Congratulations.
Yep, that's it. More community engagement. I think there's been some more community engagement.
It's been better. Yeah.
And then on the stadium lease, you said the Bengals will obviously remain in Cincinnati, which means an extension of the current Paul Brown Stadium lease. Since I'm making a private purchase with more to gain from it than anyone, my Bengals will no longer be suckling at the teat of Hamilton County taxpayers. If the folks who run the county want to operate Paul Brown Stadium or have a say in which events it hosts, and discussions can be had about how much public money should go toward county-driven initiatives. But the lopsided stadium deal that the previous regime coerced out of the county in the late 90s is a thing of the past. The Bengals are a privately owned franchise. Thus, it will be privately sustained.
I wrote that.
You wrote that. It sounded really good.
David Innimitz edited that. I put some thoughts down, and he crafted it. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
I did get to include the term suckling at the teat, which I think in my stint as a writer, I really, that was my objective. Like, how can I come up with something that I could use suckling at the teat? By the way, can this not be a regular segment where we take crap that I wrote 5 years ago and revisit it, please?
No. So it was something that a listener loved that you had written and wanted to hear your thoughts on perhaps going back to it. I can edit it out.
It's been a lopsided stadium issue. It's been a lopsided stadium deal. It's been that way for a very long time. The Bengals have benefited immensely from it. So have we. My general take with this entire thing is, look, like I understand the Bengals provide a great amount of value to the city, and as a taxpayer, I am certainly willing to do my part in keeping them here and making them a bigger part of this community. I just don't want the deal to be quite as lopsided. That's it. And that's I've said that to people who work for the Bengals, and they go, "Yeah, it's fair." Like it's been a lopsided stadium deal. You can find people who dive into the numbers far more than I can that would tell you the exact same thing. So I've always yearned for a deal that was where the Bengals took on a little bit more, and it feels like there's a willingness to do that.
Yeah.
So great. Again, in that world that I created, I bought the team, and I certainly believe that if you buy the LA Lakers just went up for $10 billion, okay? So if you have that kind of capital to buy a team, you can build your own stadium. I mean, I believe that if I owned a team, I would feel like, you know what, I'm going to do this myself. But I also understand in the real world that's not how it works, and so, all right, public subsidies for stadiums are a part of having an NFL team. The NFL team has a tremendous ancillary benefit to this city and this area and this region. I've wanted the deal to not be quite as skewed in favor of the Bengals as it has been, and it feels like the next deal won't be quite as skewed in favor of the Bengals as it has been. I do think you guys were kind of talking about this. I think the conjecture would be really interesting if this was 2018.
Yeah.
With a deeply unpopular head coach, a deeply unpopular front office, no winning, no Super Bowl, no Joe. Like the timing of this, they've had 4 consecutive winning seasons, some iconic players. They've invested in some of them. The last 4 years have been more good than bad. The residuals of the Super Bowl still loom over all of this. What if they were coming off a 2-win season, as they were in 2019 when I wrote that? I guess the 2-win season was 2020. The 4-win season was 2000. Any one of those years where they lost a number of games that you can count on one hand, how would the conjecture be played out as opposed to how it's being played out now?
Yeah, it's so much different when you have people that, that the commissioners are representing have felt what the best moments of having the team here can be worth to them and their families. Like it's just a different environment to be working in. Let's talk betting though. Let's do this. So we wanted to do our best bets. I always kind of enjoy doing this time of year. Let me start with you, Mo. What is your favorite bet when you went through all the BetMGM odds that were up there right now? Whether it be a Bengal, let's go start with Bengals related.
So all of mine are Bengals related. Number 1, Ja'Marr Chase over 1,300.5 yards. So let's say he has 407 fewer receiving yards this season compared to last year. He still hits the over. He had 1,708 last season. If he has 1,301 yards receiving, these are receiving, not combined receiving yards. So if he has 1,301 yards, he hits the over, and he still has a season that pales in comparison to last year. And so chances are he's not gonna be a Triple Crown winner again. Although I guess you can make that wager somewhere. But I like Ja'Marr Chase over 1,300.5 yards. This is a number he has gone over, I think, twice in his career. I should have written that down. But basically, he can have a year that is 75% as good as last season's, and he still hits the number. So I'm going Ja'Marr over 1,300.5.
Yeah, what do you like that one? The one thing I'll say about that is, we talked about this a few weeks back, is how the offense is going to be different based on 2 things: the continuity that they have with everybody else that Burrow has developed with the rest, and the things that they learned last year, but also defenses perhaps trying to come with a little bit more preparation for the Ja'Marr Chase movement show, which is that was such a big part of last year. Well, the Bengals are working on counters to that. Those counters involve Mike Gesicki and Chase Brown and T. Higgins and Andre Yosavash and so many of the other players. So if it becomes how much more, and this is probably the question of your bet and about all of this, how much more does Ja'Marr Chase shift to a valuable decoy, or is he just, the same that he has been? Does he continue to get open all the time? We don't know. We'll have to see how it rolls out with the defenses.
One of the reasons I like that is we've kind of seen this before. You always worry about not an injury to the player, but an injury elsewhere that could affect the player. And I don't think the Bengals' chances of winning a Super Bowl certainly would go down if something were to happen to Joe Burrow. But I don't know that the offense is going to struggle mightily if Jake Browning were to have to come in for a few games like he did a couple of years ago. I think if the defense, if that goes south and it's not better, it almost works in Jamar's favor in this case, where you are playing from behind for so much of a game, and the chance is there for them to throw a lot more. And even if teams try to take Ja'Marr away and focus more on him, he's still got this ability where a 5-yard slant can turn into a 70-yard touchdown at any point. And 1,317 games. What is that, about 85 a game, something like that? I just did it.
It's 70. It's 76.5.
Okay.
So Jamar's worst season in yards per game was 2023. He averaged 76. He's averaging 87.5 for his career. So he could slide by 11 yards per game relative to the rest of his career and still hit this number.
Yeah, I just think that one, barring an injury to Ja'Marr where he has to miss time like he did a couple years ago, what was it, 5 games he missed, 6? That feels easily attainable, 1,300 yards.
What do you think, Jay? What's your favorite bet?
So it's something that's never happened before, but I love the value, and it's Bengals plus 2,000 to win the Super Bowl. And you look at the Commanders are plus 1,800. The Commanders have better odds to win the Super Bowl than the Bengals do. The Ravens are plus 700. Does anybody really think the Ravens are 3 times more likely to win the Super Bowl than the Bengals? I mean, yeah, they've been close, but the Bengals have been to a Super Bowl with Joe Burrow. The Ravens have not gotten to a Super Bowl with Lamar. I think there's some real value there because I think the odds are that long because of this defense. And I think you have to have a little bit of faith, at least in Al Golden, to get this thing turned in the right direction. It doesn't have to be a top 10 defense. Just be competent. And I just, would I say, yes, they're going to win the Super Bowl this year? No, not definitively, obviously, but plus 2,200 to 1. That just, or is that 20 to? It's 20 to 1. But that's
20 to 1.
Yeah. You throw $100 down on that and you're going to be rooting for the team anyhow. And then you cash in big time if they pull it off. It feels like that's too high for what this team is.
I mean, I'm the other one that's right next to it there. How are the Rams also at that number?
Yep. Right.
I love the Rams. The direction that young defense was going, you still have McVay and all the pieces that they have there in LA. I really liked the way the Rams were playing last year. They were young outside of Stafford, but they've got Stafford still. He's still can sling it and get you. I think he could still win a Super Bowl. And with McVay at the helm and a young defense, like the Bengals and Rams rematch, that, you know what, that's the one I didn't find. That's got to be listed because they have every possible Super Bowl matchup in here. I need to find whatever that one is, and it would be big to try to actually hit that. If you want to get wild, go Bengals Rams. I can't even find it, and there's too many. They have like every possible matchup, but it's big. I would be interested in that just on the value of those two at that spot.
Yeah, Bengals Lions is plus 6,000, 60 to 1. So I would imagine the Rams one is probably even higher than that because I think the Lions have better odds than the Rams. So yeah, you could probably get that at 80 to 1, Rams and Bengals in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, we'll see if we can find that. But I like that one. Here's Mo, do you have any parts of the Bengals and the playoffs or the Super Bowl, the championship, or are you looking deeper in deeper corners?
So along similar lines, I have Bengals to win the AFC at plus 1,000. Now, I'm looking at this solely through the lens of a fan. If the Bengals get to the Super Bowl, it's going to be stressful enough. I don't need my sole Bengals to win something wager hinging on the Super Bowl. I want to watch or go to that game with the money in my pocket that I made from betting plus 1,000. So they have the 4th best odds to reach the Super Bowl, but there's a pretty sharp departure from the trio of Baltimore, Kansas City, and Buffalo. So I think it'd be interesting to see what the odds were if you could get the field versus any one of those 3 teams. I think if the Bengals start 2-0, these odds are going to plummet, right? So I'm grabbing the value now, and I'm avoiding having to get stressed out on Super Bowl Sunday with a plus 2,000 wager looming over all of it. So I like Bengals to win the AFC at plus 1,000 only because, like, the momentum's going to build if they win their first 2 games. And I know the gauntlet is weeks 3 through 7, but I think if this team finally gets off to a fast start, this might be the only time that you could get them to win the AFC at anywhere close to 1,000. So I got Bengals plus 1,000 to win the AFC. I do have a couple of others about winning. So you could do this, okay? You can go Bengals to win the AFC North at plus 220. But if you're going to do that, the Baltimore Ravens have finished in 2nd or 1st place in 8 of the last 9 seasons. Why not just go straight forecast Cincinnati, Baltimore, 1-2 in that order plus 250 and buy a little bit more value? So that's
I would add on to
I'm
that.
making.
Throw Steelers in 3rd and then throw Browns in 4th onto that even.
Yes.
Although the Aaron Rodgers experience is something that I don't know if you want to bring the volatility of that into your bet there, but it's weird. The North, we talked about last year about how the North felt very wide open before the season, where everybody kind of felt like they had a piece of an opportunity. This year, it feels very segmented. Like Ravens, Bengals are close, but a clear 2 team, and then Steelers, and then Browns. Like you can really kind of feel it in that way before the season, and things can change. But like, I would even throw those on there for even more value.
Yeah, and the reason I didn't is the value. I think it only went up to plus 300.
Yeah.
So I need 2 other things to happen, and I'm only getting plus 50 more. So, but yeah, you're exactly right. Like, I think we all agree the Browns are going to finish in 4th place. Right? That seems like of all the outcomes in the AFC North, that seems most likely. So just find the top 3 you like. But I liked. I'll do that too. But I liked Cincinnati, Baltimore to finish 1 and 2 at plus 250.
All right, I want to do this. By the way, that Rams Bengals is 100 to 1 on that Super Bowl. If you want to just like get good value on that, I actually would have almost thought higher, but that's if you're just looking for something to throw a couple bucks at. All right. This is one, I don't know if you went into this, but I found this interesting in the lens of something that we've had to spend too much time talking about this offseason, and that's Trey Hendrickson and Shemar Stewart.
Oh, no.
Which would you feel like of those 2 players would have longer odds for an award? Shemar Stewart to win Defensive Rookie of the Year, or Trey Hendrickson to win Defensive Player of the Year? Which would be harder to see happening?
I know the answer to this.
Right. So it's not fair.
Right.
That blew me away.
Yeah.
Trey Hendrickson, who finished 2nd in Defensive Player of the Year voting last year, is 10th this year in the odds at plus 2,800. Shemar Stewart, who's currently unsigned and unhappy and had 4.5 sacks in his entire college career, has the 7th best odds for Defensive Rookie in the Year at plus 1,500. That was stunning to me. So if I'm going to take angry Trey Hendrickson season at plus 2,800, all right, I'd probably be willing to throw something around on that and just think that, okay, he either gets it done or he doesn't and plays angry again. All right, I'm interested in that value.
And what's somewhat interesting about that is Jamar Chase, who was a finalist for Offensive Player of the Year last year, I think has the 2nd best odds. Now, it's not apples to apples. Jamar is younger. He's got Joe Burrow throwing him the football. He won the Triple Crown last year. But, like, I don't like that at all because, to me, if Jamar didn't win it last year, winning the Triple Crown, why am I going to bet on him to win it this year? But I did think that juxtaposition between the 2 was kind of interesting. And then the Shemar Stewart odds, which will take me down a different direction here in a few minutes. But the Shemar Stewart Defensive Rookie of the Year, I couldn't believe it was I couldn't believe it was on the board, much less plus 1,500.
I mean, I think it's tied to Trey's large number at plus 2,800. They think that it feels those odds plus 2,800 feels as though Vegas is banking on him missing some games and maybe not playing at all and sitting out and living up to what he said. And so that automatically increases. It feels like Shemar is going to get done. They're just rookie contracts do that. You don't have holdouts. He's going to play. And if there's no Trey Hendrickson, then his chances of being the sack guy on this team go way up. So that one didn't surprise me that he had better odds, but 2,800 is still insane for Trey Hendrickson, for a guy that's had 17.5 sacks the last 2 years. I guess you're thinking, he's not going to, he says he's not going to play on his current deal. So if he gets the new deal and plays, is he going to have that chip? And he is getting older. Are the chances of him missing games? One guy in NFL history has had 17.5 sacks in 3 straight years. Is there any way he can have that kind of season again? I think there is. If this defense is better and this team is not playing from behind all the time, and they're playing with the lead and he's pinning his ears back, yeah, he could rack up sacks again. So I had that one down as one of the best value ones at 28 to 1 for him to be Defensive Player of the Year when he was 2nd last year. Why not throw a little bit? Why not throw a lot on that one?
Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing is we were talking to a player in the locker room, and they're pointing out the distraction of Jamar, and man, you don't want that again. And they said he did win the Triple Crown. and pointing out like, distraction or not, whatever was motivating, like you can still go out there and have a great season despite whatever's happening. And the other part of this, when you get into voting, so much of it is narrative. And who has been talked about as much as anybody in the NFL this offseason? It's been Trey Hendrickson, and people pumping up how good he's been and really emphasizing his numbers for everybody to keep on the top of mind. So if he did go out and post those numbers again, then there you go. You have voters who are very well aware of sort of his run that he's been on, where that hasn't totally been the case in recent years. What else you got, Mo?
Speaking of awards, Joe Burrow to be MVP at plus 600. You have to go back 13 years to find the last time a non-quarterback won the award. So you might as well wager on a quarterback, and you might as well wager on somebody who hasn't won it. And look, Josh Allen was a deserving MVP last year. My imaginary vote would have gone to Lamar Jackson. I'm sure there are voters who did what NBA writers did back in the 90s. Well, Lamar has already won a couple. It's Josh Allen's turn. I think there are going to be voters, if the Bengals are good and if Joe has the typical healthy Joe Burrow season, who go, well, you know what, it's Joe Burrow's turn. So I'm going to invest on that. He's got the second shortest odds to be the MVP, plus 600. I'll add to that Joe Burrow over 4,200 and a half passing yards. To hit that number, to barely go over, he would have to throw for 717 fewer yards this coming season. In his 3 healthy seasons, his 3 years where he has avoided injury, he has averaged 4,668 yards. He has sailed over this number every year he's been healthy. So you're betting on health. If Joe Burrow plays 17 games, he's going over 4,200 yards. So again, you may balk at the health thing. You may think the offensive line isn't going to protect him. You may go, you know what, they're playing with fire. Whatever. You're betting on health. I'm betting on Joe to be healthy. And even if he misses a game or two, which we hope he doesn't, he still has a shot to do this. So you can't parlay these two, but I'll fold them in together since they're both Burrow related. Plus 600 to be NFL MVP, and then to go over his passing yardage total, 4,200.5.
The narrative thing is a important piece with Burrow, because not just people saying it's his turn, but for those of us that watch the team every day, every game, every play, we'll be able to see improvement in the defense. But for the national people, even if this defense gets a little better, the perception, the narrative is still going to be Joe Burrow carried this team to the playoffs, to the Super Bowl, because it's not going to be a top 10. It's not going to be a great defense. They're going to win in spite of the defense is what the narrative is going to be out there. And I think that is a big reason. I mean, he got votes last year and they didn't even make the playoffs. If they get to this year and do something with a defense that's not top 10, not great, then he very, very likely to win that award. And he's second? Lamar's the only one ahead of him? Yeah. And I think he's tied with Josh Allen, right?
Both Joe and Josh are plus 600. Lamar's plus 550.
Yeah.
Can I throw a wild one out here? I just find it fun, and I'm always into crazy value and the insane payoff that gets people broke. And so
you're gonna steal mine. You're gonna steal mine. I know it.
I might be at 100 to 1.
No,
I can get Chase Brown for Offensive Player of the Year. Okay. Now, bear with me. Weeks 9 to 17 last year, when the offense became what it evolved into and what it's going to continue to be as they got all these pieces together, he was in the top 5 in yards from scrimmage. Okay. You have a new run game coordinator and Dan Pitcher being more involved in that are going to try to be even more efficient and get more explosives out of Chase Brown just in running the ball, not just in the chemistry that he created with Burrow off script in all of the stuff that they were doing after the play breaks down. Combine that together, what we mentioned earlier, the focus on Jamar Chase, the focus on T. Higgins that will come with all of that. He's kind of the forgotten person that gets left one-on-one again. Give me another year of him working with the wide receiver coach guru. He just looks unbelievable when you watch him even run just in the offseason. At 100 to 1, All right, I'm here. I understand the wild upset and people that would be, and why he's all the way down there on that list. I get it. He's probably third most likely on his own team, fourth if you count Burrow to even win this award. However, if you look at what they evolved into last year at 100-1, I'd throw something small on Chase Brown.
I like that one. I've got one it's not, the odds aren't as long, but a lot of people will probably think it's a crazy bet. It's plus 290, and it's Chiefs to miss the playoffs.
I like this. I like this.
That team is getting older. The division, I mean, the Broncos are on the come. The Chargers with Harbaugh on the come. Now Pete Carroll with the Raiders. The Chiefs are playing a first-place schedule. At some point, it's going to break down. And it does feel like some of the magic. They've just pulled the number of games they just pulled out of their rears last year at the end. And I think it's time for kind of a regression to the mean. And I still think they're going to be a legitimate team, but 9-8, 10-7 sometimes doesn't get you in the playoffs. And at almost 3-1, I think that one's worth putting a little money on.
I mean, I have the other one with that I was going to put was I was going to say, give me the Chargers to win the AFC West at plus 333, plus 333 there. I mean, to be the ones. I think year 2 of Harbaugh, the progress that you saw them have, building that lineup to be more the team that he wants them to be. I like them to be the one to dethrone them. But you're right. I mean, what have we seen be the problem for Patrick Mahomes when the offense has had problems? It's usually been the offensive line. Now, no Joe Tooney there. They've got a rookie that's going to be starting at left tackle. They have Jawan Taylor at right tackle. Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey are back inside, but they have a bit of a mess that they've got to try to get organized there. And they were very reliant on their defense, and maybe they'll continue to be, and maybe that will carry them, and Mahomes magic will continue to be Mahomes magic. And Lord knows how much money bettors have lost over the years trying to bet on the fall of Patrick Mahomes. Don't be next, right? But man, it sure feels like if there was a time, this would be the time.
Yeah.
So while we're doing other teams, and you guys feel free to use this. Mike Tomlin never had a losing season.
What?
Yeah. And every year where he has been the head coach of the Steelers in the regular season, they have had more wins than losses. It's kind of the same principle here. At some point, it's going to happen. Now, I know they got Aaron Rodgers, who's going to turn 42 this year. So you can kind of set your own line because you could buy Steelers over 8.5, under 8.5. You could buy over 4.5, under 4.5 if you think they're really going to be bad. I'm going to have some fun with this. I'm going to bet on implosion. I'm going to bet on dysfunction. I'm going to bet on Aaron Rodgers not being able to play a full season. I'm going to go under 6.5 Steelers wins. I'm doing this solely as a fan, plus 225. Because if you're finally going to have a losing season, like really have a losing season, if he goes 8-9, he's never had a season where he's won fewer than 8 games. Screw that. Turn in a 6-11, Mike. Plus 225. Steelers under 6.5 wins.
I would be right behind you in line, strictly out of anger and spite when I backed the Jets last year in my preseason predictions and had to eat it all year for believing that Aaron Rodgers could be anything other than a divisive mess for an organization. So I apologize for even saying that last year, and I would be right behind you in line. What else?
Are you
Let's
ready?
See. What else you got? You have anything else to fire off?
Well, I've got one crazy bet.
Okay,
now, I do think it will be fun to see on how many fantasy football publications Chase Brown is featured on the cover, because he's going to be a popular fantasy football pick. That has nothing to do with my crazy wager. Demetrius Knight, Defensive Rookie of the Year, plus 8,000.
Wow.
I've read all the dispatches. They either have Ray Lewis or Luke Kuechly or Dick Butkus. Hey, best rookie in camp, plus 8,000 for my guy. Fun story, 25 years old, played at a bunch of colleges, plus 8,000 for the emerging face of the Bengals defense to be the NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year. Plus,
why not?
Plus
why
8,000.
I like it.
Right?
I like that. All right, I'm going to let you go. Before you go, though, I have one thing that I have to run by you.
Yeah.
And it's for those that don't live in Cincinnati, it's very hot. And it's not getting any cooler anytime soon. But there was a graphic from our good friends at WLWT yesterday that caught my eye, and I wanted to get your opinion on a conversation I was having about it. It's this. This was this week's. This was this week's forecast. Tuesday, miserable. Wednesday, miserable. Thursday, oppressive. Friday, miserable. Where is the line between miserable and oppressive? Where do we think that is? And is oppressive is miserable definitely worse than oppressive? Are there other ones? Is there uncomfortable? Is there unfathomable? Is there want to die? Like, I'm curious, like, what this full scale looks like from miserable to oppressive. Where do you think the lines are drawn here?
What's interesting to me is how it rises to oppressive and then immediately drops down to miserable.
Yeah.
Like, once you've hit oppressive, doesn't that stick around for a while?
Right. But I'm saying, I think the contention here is that miserable is worse than oppressive.
Really?
That miserable is actually,
I don't know,
harsher conditions, because I think of oppressive as worse than miserable personally, but the color coding here of orange to red would maybe suggest that it's miserable is the tops. I'm concerned about. I'm curious your thoughts on this scale. That's all. And I agree with it. All of these apply. Can it just be all of the above at a certain point?
I love hot weather. Now, I don't work
you're
in
in
it.
For this.
I don't work in it, so it's different. I'm not, elderly and don't have underlying health conditions. My house has AC, so I understand there are people that are put at risk when the weather gets this hot. But me personally, I like this.
Yeah.
I like this. So I find this neither miserable or oppressive. I find it almost refreshing. But again, like, I'm not out in it for 10 hours. Like, if somebody's listening to this and they're working outside, and dude, that doesn't sound fun. So
no. Well, I just wanted to highlight this because I had never seen this scale and usage before, and it just struck me as that about sums it up. That about sums up what is happening outside right now.
I want to know, like, the folks at Channel 5, I'm big fans of. I'm not that familiar with the Comfort Cast. What does this look like when it's 72 out? What are the words they use?
I want to see the full. Let's get Randy Rico, our good friend Randy Rico, on the phone. Let's get her on the horn. I need the full scale of Comfort Cast. I want to see all options that are there and their rankings, so we can see. Just as a words person myself, I really want to know more. That's all.
And why is the backdrop water droplets? That seems like it's more fitting for monsoon season. It should be like a scorching sun. I don't know why they have water in the background for this. We would love to have some rain right now.
That's true. Maybe it's just condensation and sweat from inside of a car.
And the TV weather game is very competitive. So what are 12 and 9 and 19 going to do to combat the Comfort Cast?
Yeah.
This to me is one of the great, there haven't been that many new meteorological innovations that I've seen. This is trend setting. Folks over there at Channel 5 better put a patent on this.
If anybody is listening, go ahead and forward this on, or we'll reach out to Randy Rico, and hopefully next time you're on, Mo, I will have the full comfort scale, and we can do a better judgment here. But I needed your opinion. I thought you might appreciate it. I'm glad you like the warmth. That's good.
I do. People get mad at me for. I like this. I like this weather.
Well, I'm glad you do. I will like it for all of the 5 seconds when I walk into the elevator in your building and come on up, and am on with you from 3 to 4 this afternoon on ESPN 1530.
I need you to be prepared to discuss Shemar Chase not signing autographs on an airplane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Joe Burrow not being able to throw a pitch.
Yeah.
And if you've been, your thoughts on Buc-ee's.
We had David Hale on about a month ago, who had to spend 24 hours in a Buc-ee's.
I heard
my
this.
good friend Dave, and it was awesome, and he was hysterical. I'm still laughing over that appearance. But I've never actually been inside of a Buc-ee's, but I have learned a lot through being Dave's friend about it.
I'll just say this. I know you have to move on. I made my Buc-ee's debut on Saturday.
Ooh.
Driving back from Florida. and I said on the radio that it is fine. That's apparently not good enough
Oh, that's controversial.
for Buc-ee's aficionados.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just kind of curious, like, is there anything wrong with saying that a truck stop that serves pulled pork sandwiches is fine? It's fine.
Did you see the wall of jerky?
Yeah, I was in there for 25 minutes, man. I felt like I was there for 24 hours.
Yeah.
I got an 8-year-old with me. Oh, you think we're moving in and out of Buc-ee's real quick? So all I said was, I think Buc-ee's is a little much. Oh, my God. Like, I have people in my life who I think are no longer friends with me. I said because I posted photos on Instagram of our vacation, because you have to do that. And the last picture was of me standing outside of Buc-ee's just drinking a soft drink. And like within 15 minutes, I got 3 texts from people asking, how was Buc-ee's? Not how was the beach? How was the drive? How was the vacation? Did your daughter enjoy Florida? How was Buc-ee's? And when I said to all 3 of them, it was fine, they were sorely disappointed that I wasn't like describing this transcendent life event where I'm going to drive to Richmond, Kentucky every weekend to go get a brisket sandwich and some beef jerky and fill my gas tank up. The cult of Buc-ee's in this country is something to behold.
It's real.
I walked right into it unwittingly over the last couple of days.
Good to know. I will gather my Buc-ee's thoughts and be fully prepared for this appearance this afternoon. I look forward to it. Thank you for popping in now and all of your betting advice that you are not liable for if people have gone on and taken it. So, all right. Thanks, Mo.
All right, guys.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. See you guys.
See you.
Yep.
All right. Much thanks to Mo Egger for joining us. Another entertaining. We took a roller coaster ride on that one.
We did.
I probably didn't have to do the email, but I couldn't help myself. It was a great email someone pointed in, and I know as someone who has had to go on Mo's show a lot, and he's printed out one of what he calls my little articles and has them highlighted in front of me. It was kind of nice to turn the tables and have one of his articles in front of me to pull back out. So I
to watch him squirm.
Yeah, squirming a little bit. He was squirming a little bit. It's good.
I will agree with him on Buc-ee because when we go, we drive through the night, and so we hit the Sevierville one. Usually it's about 3 a.m, and I mean it's fun to go in and walk around, but I like to just pump gas, get coffee, and get right back on the road. The last thing I want to do is kill a bunch of time. It's like I work so hard to pass about 100 cars, and now they're all going right past me again because we're pulling
Losing
over
the race.
and spinning all this. Yeah. And it is, there's so much in there to see and do. And you feel like you have to, you're shortchanging yourself if you just walk right. I went to the jerky wall. I got some peppered jerky. It was good. I did not get a sandwich. It was 3 a.m. I wasn't feeling hungry at that time. I didn't even eat the jerky until we got to our vacation spot the following day. But I don't know, maybe it'll be different if you go at a regular hour, but 3 a.m, I just don't want to spend a lot of time in a Buc-ee's.
That's fair. You can ride the little Buc-ee's Zamboni like Dave did, which is one of my favorite videos of him. Or get some gear, get the beaver hat if you need that. I mean, there's a lot of beaver poncho. So many different items that you could pull in. All right. Jay, we got your stats already, didn't we? Did we get your Hendrickson sacks?
No, we didn't get to them. I did want to say
we didn't totally finish that.
You were talking about a crazy bet, and this isn't one I made, but I don't know if you saw this one. There was a bettor in Cincinnati. They went to the Cincinnati Bet MGM and put $8 million on the Thunder to win the NBA championship right before the finals started. So it was
that happened at our Bet MGM,
the
home of the Growler live show.
I don't know if it
bet placed.
I don't know if it was our home or if it was the one right inside of Great American Ballpark because it had a little Reds logo on the top, but I think you get the Reds logo if you do it at the Bet MGM across the street too.
The one that we go to.
So it might have been, but how do you do that? Do you walk in with $8 million in cash? How do you make an $8 million bet?
Oh, I'm sending a message now. I'm gonna text our friends over at MGM, and I need to know more about. I didn't realize that was here. I saw the viral of it. I didn't realize that was here.
How
do you do that?
how bad was that guy sweating when they were down by a point at halftime in Game 7? And he only won, I think, 1.7, or maybe he was even 1.1 because the Thunder were such heavy favorites to win, but still $8 million. And placing that in person, I don't know. There has to be a way you do it digitally. You just don't walk in with a suitcase full of $8 million.
No, please tell me someone was just walking downtown between the stadiums with $8 million in their pocket and nobody knew it. Oh, good Lord. Yeah, I need more information on that. We'll see if we can get that and spill it to you. What's your Hendrickson stats?
So last year, everybody knows 17.5 sacks, led the league. How many of those sacks do you think came when the Bengals were trailing or tied?
4.
1.
One.
Week 3 against Washington. It was actually the Bengals are down by 5. They're trying to stop. The Commanders have 1st and 15 because of a penalty at midfield, and Hendrickson gets the sack and forces 2nd and 20. And you think, okay, they're going to get him off schedule. They're going to get the ball back. They're going to win the game. Nope. 9-yard pass, 9-yard pass, 5-yard pass. They kept the first down. But that was it. That was the only one. And I looked, okay, all the other guys that had double-digit sacks last year, how many of them, what did they do when they were tied or trailing? And there were actually 2 guys that had fewer. Kyle Van Noy had 12.5 sacks. None of them came when the Ravens were tied or trailing. And Leonard Williams of the Giants had 11, and he had a half a sack when they were tied or trailing. When you look at so I was like, okay, what about the stat leader every year? I went back to 2010, last 15 seasons. The stat lead or the sack leader for that season, how many sacks did they have when their team was trailing or tied? The average is 7.6. Trey Hendrickson with 1 last year. 5.7% of his snaps came when they were tied or trailing. I mean, you had TJ Watt in 2023 had 19 sacks, 11 came when they were tied or trailing. Again, in 2021, TJ Watt 22.5, 13.5 came when they were tied or trailing. It makes sense that more of them would come when you're in the lead, but to have 1 sack all year, and it's not like the Bengals were leading every game at all times. They were behind a lot and they were tied a lot, and only 1 of Trey Hendrickson's sacks came when they were tied or trailing. And 2 years ago, when he had 8 sacks, he only had half a sack when they were tied or trailing. Now, in 2023, also 17.5, 10 of his that year came tied or trailing, but that just jumped out at me. 1 sack when you're tied or trailing, that's got to be better in 2025.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the conversation. You know, I go back to when Charlie and I did that dive on, you know, the deeper view of some of Hendrickson's production. It's not just sacks. It's when did they come? How did they come? How high leverage games? And we went back to that 3-game window that defined the season there, where against the Ravens and the Chargers and the Steelers at home, where they couldn't get the stops that they needed, and they scored 99 points and go 0-3, and Hendrickson didn't have a sack, and Hendrickson got shut down. And it wasn't, and that's, there's nothing wrong with being the closer, right? Yeah. Edge rushers in many ways are closers, and Hendrickson has been as good at that. Like, how many wins since Hendrickson has come to Cincinnati have been Trey Hendrickson ! Slam the door. He's been like the Mariano Rivera of Bengals wins in a lot of ways. Is when they've needed him to go out there. You know, he's closed the door more than Joe Burrow has. I feel like in a lot of ways, because you see so many of those games where he gets the sack when the other team is desperate, trying to put together some kind of a comeback that kind of is a nail in the coffin. And that matters. But, you know, I think that's the type of stuff that the Bengals have pointed to, in that it's more than just the number. It's when, it's how, it's the impact of those. You know, it's if you're going to be Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, these guys, their point would be, we want you to be that all the time and not just be a closer, be a starter and a closer, you know, but I feel like they want to see a little bit more in that regard. And so that makes That makes sense. That's wild, though. That's wild.
Yeah,
That's much lower than I would have anticipated, even having, spent a lot of time going through his tape and stuff. Wow. Okay. What else? Arby's? You got Arby's for me?
Yeah, I mean, very little Bengals conversation last week on the beach. It was kind of refreshing. No stadium lease talks. Nobody asked me about it all week. So that was nice. But now big news. This is Bengals related, I guess, because it's in Cincinnati. Chase Burns making his debut for the Reds tonight. So I was kind of curious, have there been any wow debuts for Bengal players? Their first career game where they just went crazy, and it's been the opposite. There have been very few great performances. Ja'Marr Chase, 101 yards in his NFL debut, might be the best on the list. Before Ja'Marr did that, the Bengals record for most receiving yards in a debut was Jordan Shipley with 82. The most catches in a debut, Jermaine Gresham, 6. The one that really caught my eye, rushing yards, most rushing yards in an NFL debut. And it's a guy named Mark Logan. He had 95. It was a strike year. Now he wasn't a scab player. He was a 5th round pick. He had a 10-year career, but his first game was week 4, the first replacement player game. He had 95 yards. So if you say most rushing yards in a Bengals debut, non-strike game, you can win a bar bet with this one. This is a player that is not a running back, is still active. Who do you think holds the record?
I don't know.
Joseph Lee Burrow, 46 rushing yards in that game against the Chargers. Remember, he had that long touchdown run in his NFL debut. Nobody has had more than 46 yards other than the strike year, Mark Logan.
Wow.
That's insane.
No running. I mean, that's crazy.
In their NFL debut, no. I guess they kind of eased multiple, obviously 68 years.
At some point.
Yeah, since 1968. Some running back had to have, but no.
That is really crazy. I never would have thought that. Perhaps if things would have been different with Kajana Carter.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, what was like? What I guess I don't know. I'd have to go back. But what were some of the closer ones? Do you have the list?
I don't have the whole list pulled up, but maybe I'll do that as my stat of the J today, and then I'll put the whole list up there.
I'm interested in the whole list. My Arby's for this is we had our family reunion this past weekend. We hadn't done one in a long time, and it's my family, and then it's like, the full tree is there. There's like 4 different kind of family groups that all came together. It was a great time, everybody. Good time had by all. But there was an older man there from another side of the family. His name was Tony Burwinkle, and Tony informed me that not only does he listen to the podcast or whatever, but he is also related to James Rapine's wife, Emily. And so is actually related to both of us. He is the grandfather of Cincinnati Bengals podcasting, as far as I'm concerned. I was like, how crazy is it that there is somebody here who's related to both of us?
That's amazing.
That blew my mind. So he saw her, told her that he loves the podcast there and this podcast. He's a big Bengals fan. So and family, right? So So shout out to Tony, the grandfather of Bengals podcast. I got to see, maybe he's got a connection to Dan Horde or Lap or Jake or somebody. We're going to have to go deeper into the tree here and see if we can find out if he's connected to anybody else in Bengals podcasting land. And see what shout out to. It was so much fun, such a good time, but great talking to Tony. It was great. All right. That'll wrap us up. We'll be back on Who Dey Light on Friday with Mark. Send over your questions to the Growler Podcast at gmail.com, and we will take those on right now. Really, anything you want right now. We're deep in the off season. Vacations are on deck. For me, I'm gonna make up for what Jay did over the last couple of weeks and squeeze mine in. So I'm in vacation mode, man. Give
Good.
me whatever questions you got. I'm here for it. And also make sure that you are listening to Power Stacks. They have been crushing it over there as the Reds have kind of become front and center, Charlie, all over the Chase Burns stuff. I learn like 5 interesting things about the Reds every single show. And it's such a great listen. Make sure you're subscribing if you are a Reds fan or want to be a Reds fan. They're a fun team right now. And it's a great show. Brian and Charlie are just crushing it over there. So make sure you're checking that out. All right. On that note, thanks everybody for listening. And I'll talk to you on Who Day Light. Have a good one.